Hi, everyone. Um, the mayor and Scott are not going to make it tonight, so I see Janice and Bob are here. So I think I'm going to call the meeting to order then. So it's April 10th, 2025, 7 p.m. And I'm calling this meeting of the Shutesbury Conservation Commission to order. This meeting is being recorded. Welcome, everybody. Yeah, both Mayor and Scott couldn't make it tonight, but we still have a quorum because there's 3 of us. Yay. Hope everybody's doing well. The only comments I have are, let's see. Again, for the members of the public, we're not going to be doing the emergency cert for the beaver dam removal. That kind of fell apart at the last minute. We're actually going to have another meeting about it next week with Highway and the new town manager and Board of Health and stuff to see how to move forward with that. But so if you're here to hear about that, we're not talking about that tonight.
Before you jump on, where's the beaver dam that's in question?
It's the one, the Fisk Pond. It's the water that comes into Lake Wyola. It goes under Lakeview Drive.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah.
So just curious, and I know we're not getting into it, just to kind of define the issue. It's a dam that has not been taken down yet, correct?
Right. Yeah.
Okay. Great. Thank you.
Yes. What else? Oh, just so I was part of this regional group and we did submit our application, our MVP application, which is Municipal Vulnerability Preparedness Program. It's a state grant that you can apply to every year. And it was a regional group and we applied. All the towns in the Fort River watershed. I think I told you guys that we were going to apply. Now we actually have, but it was all the towns in the Fort River watershed applying for funding to do culvert assessment / prioritization for getting grants and things like that. So it'd be very exciting to get it. It would include training college kids mostly on the Northeast aquatic conductivity assessment. It's a technique for assessing culverts. It was actually, I think it was put together by Scott Jackson from UMass, and it's a way to assess and prioritize culverts, and it also includes uploading them into this big database of all of the Northeast with information about culverts. So that was exciting, and we'll see what happens. Oh, and the other thing I was going to say is that the drought task force did downgrade the Connecticut River Valley from a level 3 critical drought status to level 1, which is mild drought. They just had their meeting this week. And so we are still considered to be in a drought, but we had some real good improvement in the last couple months. And, they meet once a month. So if the rain continues through April, as it has in February, March, then hopefully we'll actually come out of any kind of drought status in a month or so, but we'll see. So right now we're level 1 mild drought. All right, and that's all I had. So next thing on the agenda is to review and vote on the minutes of March 27th. Does anybody have any comments or changes for the minutes? I thought they looked okay. Jan, are you good with the minutes?
I am.
All right. So I'll take a motion to approve the minutes of March 27th.
So motioned.
I will say the second.
Great. All right. Douglas,
Hi,
Rowan,
Aye.
and Wilson. Hi. All right. What time is it? Oh, it's only 7:05. Okay, so next we have site visits. Jan?
We didn't have much on the table, and we're gonna be talking about the bundled NOI for the highway department and FERCog, so really we just went out onto Wendell Road and took a look at the kinds of things that they're doing, and I guess we'll be talking about the kinds of things that can be bundled versus the ones that are gonna require NOIs, so that was on April 7th. Bob, Beth, and I were there, geez, the whole contingent. On the 8th, the very next day, I went out and walked around the library construction site. It's pretty much as I've been reporting right along. There was a breach on the north settling pond by the road, which they have repaired again. It was breached before they repaired it, and they repaired it again. And the real problem is on the western side, the wattles have been overtopped by sediment. And for the most part, that hasn't been a big deal because we also have the silt curtain behind the wattles, which is catching anything that might flow over. But there is one spot in that row in the northwest corner by the actual library building now, where the sediment escaped the envelope. So they were told they had to get that fixed, and I guess we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Jan.
When's your,
I'm sorry, just had a quick question. Jan,
Yeah.
how have they been related to your reports and requests for repair? How are they received and how quickly do you get a response?
I would say they're pretty good. That doesn't mean they, turn on a dime because they kind of don't. But for example, they had to move on the eastern side of the construction site, they had to move the silt fence and the wattle roll to accommodate the dig for the electric line. They had to kind of shift everything off to the east. And they did that really successfully. I mean, you could barely tell that they'd done it. So they did that while meantime on the other side, things were starting to get a little sloppy. So this was not a big leak of sediment, but it is, we've been cautioning them and now I think they really should take it seriously because if we have a couple good heavy rains again, they may have a much bigger problem on their hands.
Great. Thank you very much.
when are you going weekly at this point?
I'm going every other week. Do you want it to be weekly?
Maybe just this time to see if they fix that one area. You could try going next
Well, we're gonna
Tuesday.
have a bunch of rain, so, it may be worth going, again. I'll let Mary Ann know that we want to do that.
Yeah, and when you and I went out there, we kind of identified a few areas of the silt sock that looked like it needed to be replaced because it was just basically saturated.
Yeah.
Have they done any of that yet?
No, that's just my point. We've been pointing out these, weaknesses and risks and I, I guess, until you're bleeding, you don't worry
Hmm,
while you hold
okay,
your sharp knife. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how they respond. I mean, I walked around with Roger, who's the site guy,
oh, good,
and he he's fine when you're looking at stuff and you're recognizing things. So hopefully he can push them to. So all they had to do is get a new wattle in. For now,
yeah,
it would probably solve the problem.
yeah. All right, well, let's see what happens next week, I guess. I think if there's starting to be sediment getting outside the silt fence, we need to be a little more heavy-handed and tell them that if it continues to happen, we'd have to actually issue an enforcement order on them. And I doubt they would want that. I'm sure Mary Ann wouldn't want that.
It appeared that
Um,
Mary Ann understood the problem.
She
If
did.
nobody else did, she did. So we ought to be
Okay.
okay there, I think.
All right, well, we'll see what it looks like on Tuesday. Thank you for going out there.
Yeah. So the last site visit was this afternoon. You and I went over to Shore Drive, and it turned out that 77 Shore Drive wanted to put in a parking area, which is outside the 100-foot away from Lake Wyola, so they're fine.
Great, thank you.
Yep.
Next on the agenda is land management update. Scott's not here. I don't think there's been anything on any of our conservation areas since we met 2 weeks ago. The big thing right now is the CPA applications, and those will be coming before town meeting on May 31st. So it'd be great if as many commissioners could make it to the town meeting and just support Mateo and answer questions. I think Scott will definitely be there. I'll definitely be there to help answer any questions residents might have about the applications. But if you guys come and vote, support it, that'd be great. What time is it? 7:11. We still have 4 minutes. My cat is meowing outside the door. I told her she couldn't come to this meeting. I said, she comes to too many of my meetings.
Yeah, I think we should put Ginger on the roll call.
Right? Oh, Dave, you have your hand up.
Yeah, you started the meetings mentioning something about the Fishbrook culvert, beaver dam thing. I got a text from Haley that she wanted to have a meeting at 3:45 on Monday.
Yeah, can you make that meeting?
I have a training thing going on in Greenfield at the FERCog. I don't know what time that ends. Would Megan be able to answer that question?
That is a great question. I think, let me look it up right now. I think it ends at 3:30, but let me check. That would be looking, it might be great for you. Just a second. I'll look it up. I'll get it back to you. I'm pretty sure it's 3 or 3:30, but let me find out.
So this is just going to be the FERCog and the Board of Health? That's what she said. I didn't know if there was anybody else involved.
Oh, you mean for the beaver dam?
Yep.
Yeah, I don't think that'll be FERCog. That would be the Board of Health, you, me, new town manager. I think that's about it. I think it sounded like town manager wanted a general idea of how the town approaches beaver dams, and then so we can do that, but then also specifically talk about that one, which is kind of a special one, because we're talking about the one that the canoers and the kayakers like to go through, right?
Yep.
Yeah, so that it makes it very different than a regular culvert that might be clogged by beaver. So anyway, I think that's the idea, is to talk about it in general, but then also talk specifically about that one.
Our training ends at 2:30.
Oh, okay. So I should be able to make it, no problem. Okay, thank you, Megan. That was my question.
Okay, great. All right, it's basically 7:15. At 7:15, we've got continuation of the public hearing for the bundled NOI for the Department of Public Works. So we have Angela and Megan and Dave.
Hello.
Hello. How's everybody?
Doing well. You received the amendments, correct?
Yeah, we see. So what I've got is basically what you were saying was like the most updated narrative, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And that had like Megan's last comments added to it too. I saw she sent like a red line version, and the last one
Yeah.
that you sent, Angela, has everything in it. Okay.
It has everything included.
All right, do you guys want to just talk a little bit about any of the changes that you made, or I
think
guess
that
any
would-
answers to our questions that we came up with at the last meeting?
Speaking for myself, I think covering the amendments would be great.
Yep.
So what we did was we incorporated Shutesbury local bylaw and regulations into it. First section where we talk about, sorry, I'm flipping between my remote desktop and my Zoom desktop. We added the aura to the areas that can be worked in. And we added isolated vegetated wetlands into areas that cannot be worked in. We also were sure to go through it, and wherever we mentioned the Wetlands Protection Act, we also incorporated the local bylaw and regulations. Megan did add stuff about right sizing culverts into the section, and I think that was it. I don't think I'm
Right, and right sizing was just for anything 18 inches or less. Anything above that would require a separate conversation with the Concom.
Okay. Um,
So I have a question, a quick question.
oh yeah, sure.
On Sand Hill, we have a rotted culvert pipe that broke. And somebody stuffed a big boulder in it. We pulled the boulder out and we put a sign over the top of it, you know, a bent sign over the top of it and buried it back in, but that culvert needs to be replaced. It's not 18 inches, it's way below 18. I think it's like a 12-inch culvert pipe. So what's required?
Is it stormwater, or does it carry an
It's a
actual stream?
stormwater area. Yeah, it's a stormwater where the water comes down off the side of the road and it collects. And then it comes up to the side, up to the pipe, and then it drips down over the other side. It's stormwater runoff. It's not really a stream or anything. There's a stream up the road from there, but it's not connected to this. So just a water.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I think we don't have this NOI sort of in place yet, so if it's something that you want to do right away, we would probably have to first set up a site visit and go look at it and see what needs to be filed.
Are you
But-
asking hypothetically that under what would happen once this is filed under situations like that? So my understanding is if the bundled notice of intent were in place today and it is a stormwater and it is below 18 inches, you could replace it. And you could increase its size as long as it's not a stream. But it's a good situation to discuss with the Concom, but that should be covered.
So that kind of gets into one of my questions, which is, where is it? The section that's typical maintenance activities. Would those activities be included in the annual project list that we would, get in the beginning of the year, or are those, because they're typical, they would still be included in that project list?
That is at the commission's discretion. So what I used to do, like typical maintenance, like mowing, catch basin cleaning, street sweeping, those were just kind of do it. But if they were doing any sort of reclamation, even if it was just milling and repaving, not like a full depth reclamation, that is when they would submit their project list.
Okay, so I was just curious that the way the notice of intent is written, so there's that section that has, like you said, sort of things that maybe aren't going to be on the project list. But then when we go back to the list of, suitable projects under a bundled NOI, it's kind of a mix, like that suitable projects under bundled NOI has some of the things that are included in the typical maintenance, which might not come before us every year, but then it has stuff in it that it seems like now you're saying these are the things that would be on the list, like maintenance and repair of structural conveyances, and so things like head walls and wing walls and splash pads. Although I think splash pads might have been listed, like maintenance of the splash pads is listed with that under the typical maintenance. But like if you were going to go in and actually really repair a head wall, that doesn't seem like something that would be a typical.
Yeah.
So it's just a little confusing in the NOI to know which types of work we're going to get sort of this list of at the beginning of the year and actually get a chance to do site visits to and really be part of the decision about it versus stuff that's we're not going to see at all. But I agree there should be, like I agree that the list of what you have in the back for typical maintenance, mowing, catch basin cleaning, street sweeping, I don't think we want to see that every year. But but it's just a little confusing the way it's presented, I guess.
So I guess if you look at the suitable projects under the bundled NOI, the second sentence says the commission at its own discretion shall determine what proposed work activities will be included and what will be rejected.
So maybe in one of our conditions, we list what we consider to be typical maintenance under that other section and spell out that those are things that don't have to come to us in a list every year. And these are the things that we would like to see following the process that you guys talk about, like under work protocol, where you're saying, submit a list and have the commission review it, like which work we would like to happen under that.
Yes.
That might be a way to do it.
Do you do finding of facts or do you just do finding of facts that exceed the special conditions?
Yeah, we do that. Yep.
So that is where I would typically put it, is under the finding of facts. That these projects are suitable. But have to be included in the yearly list.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So for instance, okay, just to clarify from some real world examples, every year, if Dave knows in the winter, he's created a punch list of, he knows that this culvert needs to be replaced. It's just a stormwater culvert. He knows this head wall needs to be repaired. He can put that punch list together. And for those that you would like specific locations, he can give that to you every spring. You could look at it and decide, yeah, go for it. Let's hold on that one. Let's just take a look at it, type of thing. Is that general understand how the process works? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that sounds great. I just was trying to clarify sort of which work fell under that more typical maintenance, which I don't feel like needs to be on that list, I guess, like catch basin cleaning kind of thing, because then they're sort of all mixed. Yep. Okay. That is good. The other thing I'm still a little unclear about how to approach is the just delineating of wetland areas. Again, like you would get the project list of the special type projects like that. And I guess the way this is written is that the on-site meeting, which would come based on that list. We've got the delineating and flagging by a competent member of the Conservation Commission or other experienced in wetland delineation.
And again, that's one of those things that's completely commission dependent. If you have the capacity and the knowledge to say this is where the wetland is and put your erosion controls here versus if you don't, so.
Yeah.
Because my typical process was always whenever I'd get the list, I'd hop in the truck with my DPW director and go look at the specific areas, and we bring a can of spray paint and essentially spray paint the road around the wetland areas where they had to put up silt fence or some sort of erosion control.
Yeah, I guess the way it's written, performed by a competent member of the Conservation Commission or others experienced in wetland delineation, does kind of leave it up to the commission to decide whether or not they're competent. You know, so if because the commission changes so much, you know.
Yes,
People leave,
there is
people
a lot
come,
of
people-
turnover.
Yeah, but you want the NOI and the order of conditions to stand over time. So there'll be different people, and so again, maybe just clarifying that in one of our conditions. So, all right. All right, and then I guess the only thing that we also need to talk about and clarify, I think, in our conditions is what can happen in what kind of stormwater drainage conveyances. You know, make it clear that you know, what is really defined as just stormwater versus anything that could be jurisdictional. And that's tricky. But besides that, I think all the rest of the type of work that's going on, like road grading and mowing and all that, makes sense. Bob and Jan, do you have any comments?
I was curious about the wetland delineation, and so say DPW has a project that they want to do, and I just didn't want to I was worried that the pressure might be on the commission to suddenly go out and do a delineation, and sometimes delineations are complex, and I just wanted to kind of see how that would shake out. I was worried that it might just be too much responsibility too quick, and anyway, that's what I wanted to voice.
Yeah, I think and you guys let me know what you think, but so we're just kind of talking a bit about that, and you know, it's written that certain way of needing a competent person in the NOI, and then in the conditions, we can spell out even more that if the commission has any concerns, or feels like the delineation is too complicated, that they have the right to hire or, recommend somehow it'd be the town paying for it, but recommend to have a professional wetland scientist come out and do the delineation if it's a complicated one. So that there's sort of that option.
Yep, I salute that option. Thank you.
Right. Um,
And at least from what I saw on the site visit, it did appear that Dave is conscious of what a wetland is from where he was stopping doing certain things. So that's a plus, that he is knows what to like noticeably is a wetland. Some DPW staff aren't that educated.
Yeah, I'd like to reiterate that I think we're very lucky to have David aboard.
Excellent.
Angela and I were in a unnamed town today in a different county where the DPW actively reroute streams. So you're very lucky.
No, literally like pulls up culverts in the middle of the road and then sends it down the drainage swale. Perennial streams that blow out everybody on the road's driveway culverts.
Nice.
Yeah.
Sounds like good engineering. Not only do they not know what a wetland or a stream is, but they also aren't quite sure on how to engineer carrying water. One thing I just noted, I guess what the mowing is, and this is more of a question for Dave, is the idea of spreading invasives when you're doing over the guardrail mowing and stuff like that. How do you handle that?
Well, I know everybody talks about knotweed, and not too many people talk about the vines, which is, I forget what they call that. That's
Bittersweet?
Bittersweet.
the bittersweet, yeah. A lot of times the bittersweet gets mowed just because it's there. And I've been avoiding the knotweed sections because it just increases the number of knotweed that's there, but you still have to get it off, if it's hanging over the road, you got to get it off the road. There's a huge area up on, for instance, on Pelham Hill, down over the guardrails on Pelham Hill. Those have always been mowed. And they do get pretty tall, and they do come over the guardrails. So whatever the town wants done there, I mean, they don't want it sprayed, so I don't know how else to do it other than just to mow it. So that's been the past practice, is we've mowed it. Steve didn't want to mow it because he wanted to spray it, and nobody wants to spray it. So, I mean, what do you do? I did have a situation in the first town I worked at, where we did mow it, and then we put down fabric, and then we covered it with like 8 inches to 12 inches of wood chips. And that seemed to keep it at bay for a while, but then it started growing on top of the fabric. So that stuff's pretty hard to get rid of.
It is really hard to get rid of.
So, I mean, that's the only thing I can think of, is to mow it and cover it in wood chips, but that's not going to stop it.
So with the fabric, if you get a thicker barrier and it's black, you can solarize it and bake it, but don't put the wood chips on top of it because that prevents the sun from cooking it. So you would lay it down, and either you could just use rocks or whatever, or to hold the tarp down. And you do it over the summer months and it super duper cooks it. And it's a good way to eradicate knotweed.
That's a good idea. Tell
Yeah,
everybody about that.
we tried somewhat successfully. I don't know, in Amherst to put down fencing that has, I guess they're 1/2 inch squares almost to the fencing, and so you put it down about like right about now in the end of March, early April, and the knotweed gets through, but then you have to stake it down really, really well, because then the knotweed little sprouts can get through, but once they get to a certain stem diameter, they basically get cut by the fencing. And it sort of worked. Yeah, in the end, they pulled up the fencing, as much as we tried to keep it staked down, they're very strong. So if you're not out there every single day checking it, then you come back and all of a sudden it's pulled up part of the fencing. But anyway, I don't know. And with the mowing, is there a way to mow something like that and then almost wash down your equipment before you move somewhere else so that you're not spreading either the bittersweet or the knotweed or the multiflora rose or anything else that you're cutting?
Well, a lot of times, you just run the head for a while and it kicks everything off the head. So not the only time anything ever sticks to the head is when it's grabbed some wire or twine or anything like that, but the knotweed does not stay in the head. The RPMs on that head are high, they're 3,500 RPMs. So it kicks everything out of there. The only thing that sticks to it is like grass, if you're mowing wet grass. But a lot of times we do wash the head, but we do it at the highway barn.
Right.
It's hard to do it out on the road. We don't have that kind of equipment to wash it out on the road. And I don't know if that's really what you want me to do either. So we usually just clean it up when we get to the highway barn.
Mhm.
You know, there is another section on Prescott up just after Cooleyville turns to dirt. There's the guardrails down there that has to be mowed because that comes right out onto the road. The knotweed just leans right over and people can't see cars coming the other way. So that's another area that we mow. That's really, I don't think there's too many other places other than there.
The problem with knotweed that's different than the bittersweet or barberry is knotweed spreads through fragmentation, similar to like aquatic invasives like milfoil or fanwort. So by mowing it and getting those pieces in your equipment, you are spreading it because you're fragmenting it. And that is what makes it so hard to control.
Mhm. Well, I know that that Knotweed Coalition is planning on digging out the ones that we identified as not being near any resource areas. That was the last I heard from that group, that instead of using, they were kind of trying to propose using herbicides, but it all just got into too much of a big discussion with other people in the town. So the last thing I heard is that the few locations that we identified as being outside buffer zone or anything, they were just going to dig them up. So that might help a little bit. You might see some of them disappear. Hopefully. All right. I think that was.
And I do know for chemical control for knotweed, there's one that is injectable. So you inject it into each individual, so it's not like a foliar spray or something like that.
Yeah.
And it just attacks the one plant and goes down and kills its roots. But again, that opens a can of worms and isn't technically covered under this permit.
Yeah, I know this permit doesn't talk at all about pesticides or herbicides, so,
No.
yeah, no, yeah, I know that it's a tricky subject. Um, okay. I don't think I had any more real questions about it. It seems like, we just need to write our order of conditions with some more specific details to expand on what is in the NOI already. Which, I can work on, and obviously, we'll bring that to the next meeting. But so Jan or Bob, do you have any more questions or comments?
I'm all set, thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, I thought the updates were helpful. And I guess that my concern was the example that Dave brought up, the culvert on Sand Hill. That sounds like the perfect example of one that you could upgrade because it is smaller than 18 inches, unless you are flagging some other issue around that culvert.
It's just a rotted, the whole top of it's rotted, and it's been repaired a couple times with like plastic culvert pipes. And it's very shallow on the road. So it just needs to go down a little bit deeper with same size culvert, and that should solve the problem there.
Okay, so you don't have a lot of road fill on top of it.
Not
You
at
have an
all.
estimate,
It's about
like-
4 inches.
Oh,
Trying
okay.
to grade over that without, crushing that culvert pipe is ridiculous. I gotta get it down lower. And there's plenty of room there to get it down lower. I just don't know why it was up so high. One of the residents called me and told me that there was an imminent collapse ready to happen on Sand Hill. And so that's why we went down there and looked, and it looked like somebody threw a big boulder in the hole. And it was stopping the water from going through. And so we pulled the boulder out, and I put a bent sign over the top of the pipe where it was going through the road, and I just covered it with regular road material that we had there. But that culvert pipe needs to be changed pretty soon, otherwise there will be a problem there. I was hoping to work on it on Tuesday because I have the FERCog class on Monday. But if that's something I can do, I'll be happy to do it.
Yeah, I think so. We don't have this bundled NOI in place yet, so I think if we can schedule a site visit next week for us to look at it.
Yeah, if you want to do it on Tuesday, we can do that.
Tuesday.
Yep. It's got to be fixed soon. It's kind of an emergency situation there.
I still have some funding too for this to do site visits if you wanted me to attend. I mean, there's a possibility we could do it Monday since the training ends at 2:30 and everyone's gonna be driving from Greenfield, and you get out of work and could probably be there for
We-
like
I have a
We
meeting.
have that 3:45 meeting about the beaver dam. Yeah, which,
I wasn't paying attention in the beginning.
oh, that's okay. But Dave, if you wanted to go after the beaver dam meeting, we could swing by.
That's fine. Yeah, if you're already there at that meeting, you might as well take a swing by down there if you want. It's fine with me.
All right, so
We're
Jan
just-
and Bob,
We're meeting at the town hall, right?
yeah,
Okay.
3:45.
Yep. Okay. Yeah, we could swing down after that if you want.
Okay,
Show you where it is.
yep. Jan and Bob, if you guys want to come, it sounds like that's Monday afternoon, probably like 4:15 or so.
Okay, great, thank you. I'll see if I can make that.
Okay. All right, sounds like there's no more questions from the commission, so we'll take any comments or questions from the public about the bundled NOI. Seeing none, I will take a motion to close the public hearing. for the bundled NOI.
So motioned.
Second?
I'll second that.
All right. Rowan,
Aye.
Douglas,
Aye.
and Wilson. Aye. All right, thanks, everyone. We'll put an order of conditions together and have it at our next meeting, which is, let me look at the date. The 24th of April. So, there's no requirement ever for applicants to come to that meeting because the public hearing's been closed, but if you want to come and see what the draft order conditions look like, and also I'll send you guys a copy of the draft order conditions so you can comment on it. And we'll be going through the draft at the next meeting and seeing if we can finalize it.
Would it help if I sent some of the other orders of conditions I've done for these so you can look at it?
Sure, yeah. That sounds good. That'd be great.
There's been a few towns like Notorious Middlefield where I've done both the notice of intent and then followed up and had to do the order of conditions.
Yeah, send me whatever ones have been approved. Or, a couple examples, that'd be great.
Awesome.
All right, well, thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Have a good night.
You too. Appreciate it.
All right. Next on the agenda is Mark, who has been sitting here so politely. Going to give us an update on where his conservation restriction is at.
Can everyone hear me okay?
Yep.
Good. I'm losing you guys a little bit, so I'll apologize if I have to ask for a repeat. Everything came together today, of course, it's how it always goes. The surveyor actually dropped off the plan yesterday. I don't know if anybody got a chance to look at it, but they did a great job. He really went above and beyond on the right of ways and any possible restrictions on the property, just to make sure when we write this or finalize this conservation restriction that we're taking those into account. We start with the land of W.D. Coles, that right of way A, and it's a incorrect description. As I understand it, that doesn't hold up. It allows me to put the right of way anywhere I want. Coles has made it clear they're not going to use it anyway. They have one further up the road that allows them direct access and not have to go and deal with the wetlands. So it's good to know that these three can be put on the plan to make sure that the conservation restriction area does make note of these existing all the way back in the 1800s. There's another one that land of W.D. Coles, formerly Hunting. That's the third one here, number C, which was just added when Hunting sold the land to Coles. It didn't exist prior, so that doesn't have a lot of strength either. And the last one is the one that I didn't know existed. Actually, was a subject to a right of Brown. It appears that, of course, this parcel was a much larger parcel at one time. It's been broken up over the years, and Brown was way up somewhere else. But because it was on the original deed for all this land together, it sort of just migrates itself onto this as well. It doesn't show on my deeds in the last 50 years or plus. And that brings up the next issue, and that is that the surveyor said that the state of Massachusetts likes to have a deed research done sometimes and attached to these title research. One more thing. So it's going to end, it really is. So I called Dan Graves, my attorney, and he informed me that companies don't do title research for civilians. So he would see if he could get Deb at Value Title to do a title research through his company for this piece. I don't think it's necessary. I put up in the email today, I asked Donna if she could answer that eventually. But it's not going to be tremendously expensive in comparison to everything else I've spent on this thing. So why not add it if it gives the state a little bit of comfort? It only goes back 50 years. And again, my surveyor has gone back a lot farther than that. So Chris from Berkshire Design only got this today as well. So as you saw, I sent out my first email and I hadn't heard from Chris and got his email immediately after I had sent one to you folks. So he has already added in Charlie Eastman stuff into this draft of the conservation restriction. Fantastic. And now that he has the survey, he can do the minimization and add the copy of the survey to this as well. That'll take no time at all. So the last thing I think that on my agenda anyway, that we need to discuss, you guys might have some other stuff, but is the $10,000. And all I want to do is get a feeling as to how that number came about. So the first question, I've got two questions. The first is, what was Damari charged on that restriction? And I'm not looking to say, well, he paid this, because I think over time, I think the conservation commissions and other people holding these restrictions understand how much it takes to continue the oversight on them and making sure that they're looked at once a year or whatever the time frame will be. So I understand you need enough put away so that it'll gain interest, and hopefully the cost of the inspection per year will not go past the interest and allow the interest to accrue to be able to make larger principal and so on and so forth, and allow this contribution to expand. So the only way that I come up with, I'm trying to figure out how you guys came up with 10,000 and, you know, just a number sort of out of the air, was that $10,000 at 4% interest on a long-term CD gives you $400 a year. I would guess that somebody's going to walk that parcel in much less than an hour if there's no infractions, and then they'll have another hour to write up a report. Call it $100 an hour, maybe somewhere in that range, and probably less time than I'm suggesting at 2 hours. So you've got a couple $100 a year, and that leaves you another $200 a year to accrue into principal, so that you can get interest off of that as time goes on and take care of any sort of inflationary stuff, so that the 10,000 should last a very long time. So I think I've just defended your point, but I was hoping that you guys would do that and explain to me how you came up with 10 grand.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. I have written on the top of my notes here, 10,000 endowment times 4% is $400 a year. And, you know, I have that there, which I think may have come, Donna may have said something. I think Bob researched it a little bit. I think I even just Googled it, you know, to try to find out like how do groups usually do it. And that seemed to pop up enough that was the calculation that we did. And I think somewhere in here I have how much the Damari one was, but I have to search for it a little bit. Is that, Bob, you did a little research on it too, right?
Yeah, I apologize. I did talk to somebody who works for Sudbury Valley Trust as well as the Harvard Conservation Trust, and I just as we were going through this, I was trying to find those numbers, and I wasn't able to get those. I think I sent those on to you, but it
I
is
think they were similar, is what I
Yeah.
remember. Yeah.
I think frankly, I think between 5 and 10 would put us in the area.
How big were those conservation areas that Sudbury and the other were dealing with?
Yeah, I apologize, Mark. I wasn't able to catch that. You were a little bit broken up.
Yeah, what the acreage was for the Sudbury conservation restriction or the other one?
Yeah, that would certainly would be a good way to make a fair comparison, and I don't have that information handy. I apologize.
And were you able to find that, Beth, on Damari?
I'm looking. My cat jumped
The
on
cat was in the way.
messing everything up. Go away. I can send that to you, and I can find Bob's email that he sent to, and just a bit more information on where that came from. But I do think it'll be in that range, you know, like it's like Bob said, 5 to 10 in there somewhere, just to give you an idea. But yeah, we should finalize that number. I can send you the information, and then maybe it sounds like we're getting pretty close with the actual CR. So if you're thinking of coming to our next meeting in 2 weeks and could get us all a copy of that almost, you know, that real draft that's almost final CR, up to a week or so before that meeting, then we'd all really get a chance to read through it, make sure it's got everything. And then, you know, at that meeting, and I'll send you between now and then, I'll send you more information on where we came up with the number for the amount, and then we can talk about that at the next meeting.
I don't have a problem with putting that to rest right now if we can agree on $7,500, which is right between 5,000 and 10,000. Again, if Damari was lower than that, you know, you probably have learned some stuff, and it makes more sense to have a little more cash in there. I don't know why I think that I had heard 5,000 on his, but again, I don't think it's a apples to apples sort of thing. Times changes, you know, as time goes on, you learn more about how these things run. So if we want to throw $7,500 in there, I don't know if you want to do a vote on it or how you want to handle it, but I think that's fair. And I think that I'm going to guess by tomorrow, Monday, Chris will have the documentation of the survey added to the plan. That was the last piece. So I'm hoping either tomorrow or the beginning of next week, I can have the plan, the conservation restriction to you with the plan involved. I did send you his updated one, so you should have that today, which showed the what they're calling conservation values protected to this or by this conservation restriction. So that was on page 2, changing page 2. So that was in the email, should have been in the email I sent you guys this morning. So the only thing missing on there again is the survey, and yeehaw.
Yeah, this has been a long process.
Oh, it's brutal. And I take, you know, it was just as they say, the perfect storm, you know, losing my engineering firm because they no longer had a Massachusetts licensed engineer. They would have taken care of all of this. You know, I've gotten very used to writing the check and not having to do the work any longer. And this sort of fell in the lap. And, you know, as soon as you gave me a copy, I went, oh crap, you know, this is way over my pay scale. So it was great that Berkshire Design was able to step in, and then Charlie Eisman was a perfect fit, you know, just great. So, you know, for the way it transpired, or what set it up and the way it transpired, it turned out to work very, very well. But at least it's coming to a head and end, and we can get it over to the state after you guys take your vote, hopefully take a positive vote, and then we can have it go toward the state. I think that's how it's supposed to work. And I think for your next meeting, as you said, on the 24th, we'll be more than ready for it, and we can wrap it up.
Yeah, that all sounds good. I think that would be probably when we should all vote to, you know, approve the CR, but also a vote on the amount of money. Donna is going to come to that meeting, and you know, more than anything at that meeting, I think it would be more her guidance on where it goes from here. Like, you know, it's going to need our signatures, but it's also going to need, I believe, the select board signature and a few other people. So, and she can help with that, I think. So, yeah, so she'll be at that meeting, and yeah, so maybe this will all come together and close itself on the 24th.
Well, I haven't lost sight of the fact that you folks didn't have to do this either. So I do appreciate it. It's really hard to find a holder of conservation restriction of this size. So thank you for this. I appreciate all the time you've put into it. It's, you know, I'm going to sell it and hopefully get my money back and or make something on the property. But you folks do this out of the goodness of your hearts and making sure that Shutesbury has volunteers in place to run these committees and commissions and the rest. And without you guys, the government fails. So thank you so much for doing this and adding one more burden onto your list of things you have to do. And I hope it won't be a burden.
Yeah, well, it's always good to see land get conserved, you know, have CRs put on it. So I know the planning board made you do it, but it's just
Yeah.
all still so good. Anytime anybody puts a CR on land, it's all good. And yeah, because we're small, we don't have a huge list, I guess, of we have a few, and it's getting longer all the time of
Yeah.
like new conservation lands and new CRs that we have to keep track of. But yeah, it's all good.
I'm glad the way it works, you know, it allows the land to have some buildability, but also allows a lot of, obviously 3 times as much conservation, or a little more than 3 times, 300% more for conservation. So I think it's a great concept. Very excited to see somebody do something positive over there and follow the rules. So see you guys on the 24th. I'll get you the information no later than beginning of next week with the finalized conservation restriction. I'll throw $7,500 in there. So we have
Okay.
something to look at and then go from there for the vote on the 24th.
Yes, great. All right, that sounds good. Nice to see you.
again. Thank you very much. Nice to be seen. Have a good
Have a
night.
good night. All right.
Hey, Beth, I think it was Scott that came up with that figure for the 4% based on the price tag of doing annual surveys or whatever's required at some other locations in town.
Yeah,
So
I
maybe worth
think
asking him.
the 400. Yeah, maybe I'll ask him too for it's a pretty basic, 4% is about right. And then it's the question of would we spend $400 a year? And maybe that's, Scott knows a little more about what you pay for.
Yeah, it might be
Um,
size dependent, but I thought he was talking about something that he was spending 300 something on a year. So that's how he got to the 400. He just rounded it.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
don't know.
yeah, and it seems about right to me. So, but 750 I think is close to, that would still get us what might be enough, and it is a smaller parcel. All right, well, I'll check in with him on it too before the 24th. All right, next on the agenda is the determination of applicability for the Atkins Reservoir Basin. So I am going to recuse myself again. Mateo's got the drafted determination of applicability. Oh, shoot, there's only 2 of you. God dang it.
Wouldn't we be able to, since we have an assembled quorum of 3 of us, wouldn't 2 of us be allowed to vote and therefore pass as a quorum? It would
I
be
don't know.
No, we don't have a quorum while we're looking at this.
Yeah, I think you have
I
to
see.
have,
I apologize.
Oh.
Yes.
yeah.
We would need
Well, that's too bad.
3 neutral folks in order to be a quorum of the commission. That's correct.
Oh, well. I'll let the consultants, they didn't need to come tonight, so I'll let them know that it just got moved to the 24th because Mayor was gonna come tonight until about half an hour before the meeting. She got sick, so she couldn't come.
So
Um,
is it, do we have to do anything to continue this?
No, because the hearing's closed.
Or did
That we
open?
closed the public hearing. Now we're just looking at the drafted permit. So there's no sort of continuation of it. It's just, we just move it to the next meeting.
So there's no deadline?
There's a 21-day issuance, I believe, from closing the hearing.
That's true. It's 21 days from when you close the hearing. And it's already been 14. So yeah, really, we need to issue it in the next week. Huh. Well, but so as this has come up before, my brain is just not working so well. It's all all those deadlines are also they all can be continued as long as the applicant is all right with it. So guess what? I believe I am the applicant in this case. Well, the town of Amherst is the applicant. And I can speak for the town of Amherst in saying that we are fine with moving the review of the draft permit until the 24th. It's fine.
Yeah, I think that would be it, going beyond the 21 day, leaves it open to an appeal by the applicant. And if the applicant is giving consent to hear it later on, then I think we're totally on solid ground.
Yeah, I had that conversation many times with Mark Stinson about, typically with like an order of conditions is huge and it's gonna take you more than 21 days to get a final version of it. And he said a number of times to me, as long as the applicant's okay with it, it's really fine. So
This is kind of funny. You can't vote, but you can extend.
I don't
Okey
know.
doke.
Yeah, don't know what else to do. Would rather do that than vote. Voting doesn't seem right.
No, yeah, I
But
think we're
moving,
good.
yeah, moving it to the next meeting is all right.
How about, Jan, I'm asking you if it's okay to table it to the next meeting, and I will say so too, and then that will become part of the minutes.
I don't think it matters what we think, because the applicant just said, yeah.
I did.
We're good.
We're good. That's in the minutes.
Yep.
Okay then. And as I said earlier, the emergency cert, we're not talking about tonight because it's also got tabled.
Do you want to
So-
supply any, do you want to supply any information on the beaver thing? Is there any information that you can share?
Just that, originally, so all I know is that highway department and probably some residents, saw this dam there. And it had to do a little bit with, there was an emergency search issued at some point, something that the health department had written that just said to almost continually make sure that culvert stays clean so that nothing builds up over time. So we're not in the situation that we're in right now.
Mhm.
But then with the turnover of the superintendent of DPW, that kind of got lost. And so here we are again with having the beavers built up something that's pretty significant in that culvert.
Yeah.
And then I believe there was some talk of wanting trapping, but then the health department not approving that. And so because of that, then the dam got even bigger because the beavers are still there. They're there right now.
What was the reason the health department did not approve trapping?
I think they wanted to use the conibear type traps, which is
Underwater drowning.
Yeah, they're the ones, I guess you could call them that. They're just a snap kind of a thing.
So I know that they're piling the stuff up kind of in the culvert. Isn't that the case?
I think
That's
so,
why,
yeah.
that's
I
why a
haven't
beaver
seen it.
deceiver doesn't work, right?
That location of beaver deceiver couldn't work. This is why that's a unique situation, because that's where the kayaks want to be able to go through. A beaver deceiver, you put a fence around and then you have a pipe usually coming through the fence.
Yeah.
So it has to be open.
So the camp has the kayak thing going on. Yeah.
Right. The kayak canoe thing kind of adds a whole, it makes it not a typical culvert, like a beaver culvert situation where you would call in Beaver Solutions to try to see if they could put a fence or the whole beaver deceiver with the pipe, but we can't do that here. So that's part of the problem. And
that may
also,
have impacted the whole idea about trapping them as well. If kids are in the water there.
yeah. So it's a thing. And then Dave kind of threw in at the last minute that he didn't feel comfortable having his highway guys going in the water when this was a bit ago when it was so cold. He thought that was dangerous to them. And so it's a whole discussion about how to figure it out. So it's not, it originally, I had at the select board meeting just said, this is the process for getting an emergency certification. And the health director had said, okay, let's do that. But then there was more discussion about it and it didn't seem as simple anymore. So we're going to talk more about it next week.
Okay.
Yep. All right. So do you guys want to have time to look at the regulations a little bit?
Do we really want to do that with 40% of us missing?
Yeah, I don't know. It's up to you guys.
Might be a good time to end the meeting early. You know, they snooze,
Jan
they
wants
lose,
to
they don't get
go.
out early.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. It's not good to really do it possibly with Scott and Mayor not here. What do you think, Bob?
Yeah, I was kind of on the fence, but Jan has convinced me that
It might be nice to end the meeting.
tabling it is a good idea.
Okay.
Even
All
though I
right,
can't
yeah.
anybody say that.
I think we were on the small permit section, so maybe if I'll send an email around saying people should look at that, plus, you know, kind of what comes after that, which I think, I'm hoping we get into sort of things like, you know, with a section on an NOI and an RDA and a butter notification and stuff that's really straightforward and we can maybe cruise through pretty fast. It's not as complicated.
I appreciate it when you give us a list.
Okay. I'll send that around. All right then, great. No unanticipated business, so I take a motion to adjourn.
So motioned.
I will second.
Rowan,
Aye.
Douglas,
Aye.
and Wilson. All right, well, let me know, I guess, if you guys can come on Monday to see that culvert. It sounds like it'll be like 4:15-ish.
Good. Yeah, if you could send me a reminder, I might be able to escape from work and get there in time. So that'd
Okay.
be good.
I will. He said Sand Hill Road, but I don't know much more than that. I'll try to get a little more detail into what he's talking about. So. Okay, great.
Thank
Excellent.
you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great night. Bye-bye for now.
You too. Bye.